Welcome to today's edition of the Rush Limbaugh Show podcast.
I knew it. I hate to be, and I told you so, but I knew this was going to happen. I wanted to get here today. I wanted to beat Biden to the punch, but I wasn't able to do it because Biden went out there before the program started. He just finished. These guys have more sensitivity to what's on this program than Republicans do, I'm telling you. Anyway, I told you I'd be here today, folks, and here we are, Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIB microphone, 3 hours of broadcast excellence straight ahead. The telephone number is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushmo@eibnet.us. So there's Joe Biden, who thinks he's been elected president, and he hasn't been yet. He has not been elected president. There hasn't been a certified vote yet. Media networks do not proclaim, well, they can proclaim, but they do not determine who presidents are, and he is not president yet. But he's acting like it. Man, was this guy sad. Man, is this guy just apocalyptic and down in the dumps. So he said today that he was going to meet with his new COVID advisory board. And they were going to finally get serious on dealing with the pandemic because, as you know, not a single thing up to now has been serious about COVID. No, because Trump has been running, and of course that means we can't take anything seriously because Trump is an incompetent boob, doesn't know what he's been doing. So, I wanted to warn everybody here that we are on the verge of, we're gonna get the Biden COVID vaccine. We're gonna get the Biden economic recovery. We're going to get the Biden this and the Biden that. Everything that needs to be fixed, everything that needs to be ramped up, everything needs to be resolved is going to be said by the media to have been resolved by Biden. We're going to be here with the COVID Biden vaccine. We're going to be hearing of the Biden economic recovery. We're going to be hearing of the Biden end to looting and arson. All of this, I just want you to be ready for it. I wanted to get here and have a chance to say this before Biden, but Biden knows the drill more than Republicans do. He knew to beat this program to the punch on that, but it doesn't matter. What he said, if you're just joining us, if you missed what he said, and I don't blame you, folks, I know that more and more of you are just tuning media out. And I totally understand, including Fox News, I totally understand that. If there was ever a day, if there was ever a time for devout, exclusive listening to the EIB network, then today it is. So there's Biden, and I'm watching this, and his overall demeanor is one of great sadness. He's very down in the dumps, very, very disappointed. And it's all an act, of course. It's designed to convey the seriousness and the sadness that is associated with COVID-19. And the sum total of the Biden COVID plan is you will wear a mask. You're going to wear a mask, folks. A mask is magic. A mask, said Joe Biden, is not political. No. If we all wear a mask, why, we're going to bring our country together. Oh, yeah, we are going to unify. If everybody just wears the mask, why, we are in Fat City. We're going to fix it all. We're going to fix everything Donald Trump broke. We are going to reunite. We are going to bring the country back together. And in the process of wearing a mask, guess what you're doing? You're giving something back. You notice the left always thinks that you, the people that make the country work, always have something to give back. They never think that the rioters and the looters have anything to give back, though. But you do. Somehow you owe the country According to today's Democrat Party and the left, you need to give something back. And so you can do that by wearing a mask. If you would just wear the mask, why, it's magic what would happen. We'd all come together and we would all make statements that are not political. I think it's just a disappointing tragedy what has happened here. And I'll tell you what needs to be the focus. Oh, yeah, this is such great news. You see what happened with Dow futures today. And now the stock market's up 1,200 points. The futures were up 1,200 points because Pfizer say that their vaccine is 90% effective. And let me tell you something. Joe Biden had nothing to do with the vaccine, but he's going to get credit for it. It's going to be the Biden vaccine. He had nothing to do with it. The Democrat Party should get no credit whatsoever. They have been berating the vaccine. They have been suggesting that it's false. They have been suggesting that Trump has been lying about it, that it is not going to be ready in time, and if it is, it isn't going to work. They have been irresponsibly ripping the vaccine. Institutionally, they have been suggesting to people that if Trump is responsible for it, they can't trust it. Trump doesn't make it. Trump's not a scientist in a laboratory wearing a white coat or a blue coat and making a vaccine. This is Pfizer. This is Johnson & Johnson. This is BioNTech. All reputed scientific companies. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have both been denigrating the entire concept of a vaccine because Trump would be behind it or because Trump would benefit from it. They have been actively trying to persuade people not to take it. Governor Cuomo, too, because Trump is bad. People are irresponsible. So now we've got the announcement from Pfizer that their vaccine is 90% effective. This causes the stock market to jump an incredible amount. The president said time after time that vaccines were coming, and Democrats said that he was a liar, that if such a vaccine was ready, they wouldn't trust it because he was behind it. And now, my, how things have changed. We've got the so-called president-elect Joe Biden, and all is well. CNN's even stopped the COVID-19 countdown. I have it right here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers. Monday, November 2nd, 10:30 a.m. Here's CNN screenshot. Coronavirus pandemic, globally total cases. In the United States, total cases, total deaths. 1 week later, November 9th, 2020, 10:30 a.m., a screen grab of CNN's main page, not a single mention of coronavirus. And we told you that coronavirus was going to vanish after the election, and it has. We didn't tell you the virus itself was going to vanish. Don't confuse things. We didn't say they were going to do. We said it was going to stop being a big issue. And why is it going to stop being a big issue? Because they don't want to lay it off on Biden. We're going to have a cure. We're going to have a vaccine. It's going to be the Biden vaccine, not the Trump vaccine. Biden did all this magically while sequestered in his basement. So we told you after the election, the vaccine or the virus is going to be way, way diminished. And so it has been, starting out in the pages of the drive-by media and also their television screens. It's just amazing. In a so-called President-elect Biden world, all is well. Utopia has arrived. Vaccines. Why, we're going to be able to trust them now, except Andrew Cuomo says no, unless we can get this vaccine out of Trump's hands and transfer it to Biden's, we still shouldn't trust it. It's all about whether they succeed in persuading people that Biden had more to do with the creating and the shepherding of the vaccine than Trump did. So the Dow futures were up 1,200 points. Pfizer, BioNTech, COVID-19 vaccine, 90% effective. Folks, here's where we are with this. It is vital that our constitutional framework be protected. This recount, this canvassing, this investigation must occur. It must take place. The founding fathers of our country knew that there would always be intense political battles. They knew that there would be bad actors. They knew there would be people trying to undermine what they had founded, what they had created. They knew it. They were not naive. They knew from the moment they founded the United States that it would be a threat to an entire group of people or many groups of people around the world. They created defense mechanisms and insurance policies as best they could, starting with creating 3 branches of government to ensure a government of law, not of men. You have heard the phrase, a government of law, not of men. Checks and balances throughout our system. It is very important that there are clear, specific facts presented in a very scholarly and concise way as this investigation goes forward. That institutions, American institutions, are revered, respected, and protected. And what I mean here, it's great that we have anecdotal evidence. It's great that you can get a phone call from somebody who says they saw X number of ballots being tampered with, or they saw this, or they saw, that's all well and good, but that's not going to change anything. They all need to be investigated. They all need to be tracked down. Do not misunderstand. But there need to be very clear, specific facts presented in a scholarly and concise way. I have been urging people all weekend to name an investigation czar, a vote count czar, whatever we're going to call it. And this is a single person that the Trump administration sends out every day to update the people of this country on the latest of the investigation into every state, into every allegation of vote fraud in every state. You've got your staff tracking all this stuff down. You have your czar or your figurehead who leads the investigation, who takes in all the information. He's got a staff. They codify it each and every day, and they report to the American people in an honest, straightforward, factual way. And there will be plenty of information to report. There'll be plenty of information to gather. There was plenty of fraud that took place. There's simply no way Joe Biden was legitimately elected president. It just can't believe it. I do not believe it intellectually. And as I look at what I have learned and what I have seen over the course of the past 4 or 5 days, there's simply no way. And I have an idea. I got an idea. Let's unify the country. See if this idea will float. Let's unify the country by conducting a massive investigation of vote fraud. And let's make Trump look like a fool, right? That's what they want. So let's do this massive, because Trump says it's fraudulent here and fraudulent there, and everybody knows Trump's an idiot, and everybody knows Trump's a fool, so let's do this. Wouldn't the left want this? Wouldn't the left want there to be documentary evidence that Trump doesn't know what he's talking about, and the only way to get it is a full-fledged, serious, nonpartisan investigation into what happened? Are you with me on this, Democrats? Probably not. And if you're not, why not? Why wouldn't you want to join? What are you afraid of being discovered? If you won this thing legitimately, and if there wasn't any chicanery, we got all the time in the world. Al Gore had 37 days to monkey around in one state. We've got to get this right. Folks, the history and future, this country depends on us getting this right. If we do not get this election right, if we do not get the votes counted correctly, tabulated correctly, then we're going to lose all integrity in elections. The Democrats have been attempting to do that with 4 years of being critical of Trump being an illegitimate winner in 2016 by saying he tampered with the Russians, colluded with the Russians, meddled with the Russians, when the Russians didn't do anything. There wasn't any meddling or collusion. They've already damaged the integrity of our elections way too much. And they predicted the Russians were going to be involved in this election until they say Biden is the winner. Now we can't even find the Russians being anywhere near involved. This is about the future integrity of elections. We cannot have a country where 70 million voters don't trust the outcome. And that's where we are right now today. Now, I submit to you the left doesn't care. All they want is the win and everything that goes along with it. They don't care about the integrity of elections. They don't care about your opinion. They don't care about having to persuade you to agree with them or any of that. They don't care. They just want you rendered irrelevant. And if they have to go so far as to not count your votes, that's exactly what they will do. The rule of law, the Constitution, efficacy have to dominate using a targeted approach here in how we track down the fraud and how we present it to the American people. If presented in the right way, this can be a very effective, laser-focused message. It can help in the primary objective, which is to protect the integrity and the honesty of the American presidential electoral system, and this must happen. We can't go forward as we are right now with so many people distrusting it. Anyway, I got to take a break because of the constraints of time and the programming format, but we will continue after this. Do not go away. Ladies and gentlemen, we must put our energy and faith into the founding principles and ideals of this country. That is what is going to get us through this. The founding documents of this country, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, it's all there. If those documents, particularly the Constitution, if they are adhered to, because the Constitution is the rule of law, if that is adhered to, we will get to the bottom of what happened. And that's where our energy and that's where our faith must be. It's actually a teachable moment. It's a golden opportunity to teach relevant aspects of our founding documents that have not been properly taught. And I don't mean we need to get into the weeds on things. You don't need to make it complicated. But there is a way to do this. And that's all I'm focusing on. And I don't want anybody to be mad at me or misunderstand. I'm not saying that the individual anecdotal stories of fraud here and fraud there are not valuable. I'm not saying that they aren't worth it, but they are. We don't build the case with scattershot examples. We take all those examples and we put them into the central clearinghouse run by what I hope will be the election czar. The election czar will have a staff. He will take all this, and this is my dream. This is my hope. Take all of that in. Along with the official investigations the Trump administration has mounted, along with all the assistance from the United States Supreme Court like Justice Alito. If Alito prevails in Pennsylvania, you realize Pennsylvania could flip to Trump if the ballots that were submitted after November 3rd are rendered irrelevant and are said not to count because they violate the law. This is big, but we need to go about this in the strict constitutional legal fashion with no politics attached. Haven't we been told for 4 straight years, ladies and gentlemen, nothing is more important than safeguarding our elections? Isn't that what everything the Democrats did the last 4 years was based on? First, the phony Russian coup, which was designed to get rid of Trump because he stole the election. Of course, we know it's all BS, not a single fact in it. But look at what they said. The integrity of our elections is paramount. Then they do the impeachment. And that's based on Trump making a phone call that somehow violated the integrity of the presidency and so forth and so on because it was investigating the family of his potential presidential opponent, Joe Biden. They said we must safeguard our elections. Now they're not interested in it. Now they're not interested in getting to the bottom of what happened. They want the perception that this thing was stolen to take hold. They don't know that. They don't want you to think that. They are happy with the outcome, to the point that if 70 million Americans think the election is not above board, that's okay with them. They don't care. Safeguarding our elections is no longer a concern. It really was a big concern when Al Gore wasn't happy back in 2000. We spent 37 days safeguarding that election. 37 days. That was basically a 3-county, 1-state investigation. And there was no thought of shutting down that investigation early like there is this one. What are they trying to hide? Now, let me show you what I'm talking about when I talk about a czar or a central figure operating a clearinghouse, dispensing information to people every day. This happened, by the way, during the Gore-Bush recount. And there were 2 people that actually, well, maybe 3. James A. Baker III was George W. Bush's lead guy. And he had a spokeswoman by the name of Margaret Terwilliger. And Mary Madeline was occasionally involved in that effort as well. But it was just those 3, and that's where you went to get the latest on the hanging Chad controversy from the George W. Bush team side. And last night, on Life, Liberty, and Levin on the Fox News Channel, Levin spoke with Ken Starr about the Constitution. And I think this is what I'm talking. When I talk about a czar, I'm not suggesting it should be Starr, although he might be good in this role, because you need somebody serious, you need somebody scholarly, and you need somebody who is unattackable, unassailable on a partisan basis. Clearly, that is not Ken Starr. So, but listen to what he says and how he says it. It's right up with the alley I think we all need to be going in terms of dealing with getting this fraud discovered, exposed, and overturned. So the first question from Levin. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution provides as follows. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in Congress. So in other words, state legislatures determine how to select their electors. Isn't that what that means?
What happened in Pennsylvania over these recent weeks is a constitutional travesty. Governor Wolf tries to get his reforms, his vision, as he was entitled to do, through the legislature of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He failed. He then goes to the state Supreme Court, which by a divided vote accepted the substance of what Governor Wolf was doing and then added their own nooks and crannies as well. Happily, in recent days, we've seen Justice Samuel Alito step in as a single justice. He has the power to do it, and essentially, in a very short order, say the legislature is the boss. What the governor did, this is my interpretation, is utterly unconstitutional. What the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did is utterly unconstitutional.
That is the kind of information that needs to be sent and transmitted to the American people by a credible czar every day as the information is gathered. Somebody who can make it understandable, like me. I mean, I'm not the czar, but somebody can make the complex understandable. What Starr has just said here is the governor of Pennsylvania doesn't have the power to do what he did. It's not in the United States Constitution. Justice Alito saw what the governor did and immediately stepped in and said, you're not going to do it that way. Justice Alito then ordered the separation of all post-election day ballots in Pennsylvania. On Friday, Republicans asked the U.S. Supreme Court to ensure county election officials were segregating mail ballots delivered after Election Day. On Friday evening, Justice Alito approved the Republican request. He ordered county boards to comply with state guidance to keep the late ballots separate because they might end up being thrown out as illegal. However, even if the high court were to ultimately side with the Republicans, the impact, it says here, would likely be muted. Pennsylvania officials said they're already setting aside the small number of mail ballots that have arrived since Tuesday. No, they weren't. That's why Alito jumped in there. They were not setting aside a small number, a large number, any number. It's why Alito had to issue the order twice. By the way, that small number is somehow large enough to wipe out Trump's 700,000 vote lead. This is not a small number. We go to bed, those of us who did, on election night, Trump's up 700,000 votes. In the 2016 election, throughout the night, Trump's vote totals kept being added to. They kept finding more votes. Lo and behold, Trump has a 700,000 vote lead in Pennsylvania, and they stopped counting in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, the two largest Democrat sections of the state. They stopped counting, no doubt, to find out how many votes they're going to need. And then overnight, while most normal people are asleep, the magic happens, and the 700,000 vote majority starts to vanish. 700,000 vote lead, and it's gone. And nobody saw how it happened. So there will be an investigation into this. The Trump team has vowed they are going to investigate this. Let me give you another example of Ken Starr, who was on with Levin last night, Life, Liberty Levin, the Fox News Channel. Question, we keep hearing, count every vote. Isn't that the issue precisely, Justice Starr, Judge Starr, which votes do we count?
Exactly right. In fact, to count every vote may be a crime. It may even be a crime under federal law. It's definitely a crime under state law. If that is, and here's the key word, illegal. Well, and that's why you see, and it's shameful that Vice President Biden's people and the Vice President himself are saying count every vote and selling a lot of T-shirts. That is a potential and an invitation for absolute lawlessness.
Again, this is the kind of information that needs to be imparted officially from the Trump administration via the recount or the investigation or the election czar, whatever the title is. Exactly right. In fact, to count every vote may be a crime. You might be, how the hell can that? Because some of these votes are illegal, folks. Some of the votes are illegal. They're illegally placed. They're illegally tabulated. They're illegally made. Some of these ballots were filled out after the fact. You've heard the anecdotal stories. Finally, our last comment. I just want you to hear this as though this is an official election czar giving you a report on the day's activity, the results of the ongoing investigation that they are conducting.
It was very clear from the outset that what the governor did and what the state Supreme Court did was utterly unconstitutional. So it's a lawless act. And at this stage, the Supreme Court has a solemn duty, in light of the nature of the issue and the stakes at hand, has to take the case. And I think, by the way, the earlier determination by Justice Alito to call a halt to any counting, if that had begun, of these set-aside ballots, the ones that I view as illegal. They're just illegal. They don't and should not count. His determination to do that is a signal. It's not an assurance, but it's a signal that a majority of the Supreme Court would uphold what Justice Alito has done.
Now, you might say, well, how do we know that? Well, we don't know that, but there are assumptions that if Justice Alito is going to rule as he did, he's got to be somewhat confident that there is a majority of support in the court for it. Those are just factors that are taken into account by judges as they rule on matters like this, where further requests of participation for full membership of the court may be sought. Bottom line is that Judge Starr here is convinced that illegality occurred in Pennsylvania with 700,000 votes, wants to get to the bottom of it for the sake of the integrity of our electoral system. That must, at the end of all this, regardless who wins, folks, that has to be what happens here. We cannot go forward with the presidential election system being doubted by the losing side every time. I mean, look, there are going to be people who doubt it, but we can't have what we have now. We've lost all the integrity. And the thing is, the left doesn't care. Doesn't matter to them. They've demonstrated this throughout this entire process. They don't care. Well, somebody has to care. Somebody has to care for the future of the country, the future of the Constitution, the future of the rule of law, the future of the integrity of the rule of law, the Constitution, and our election system. And that's what this attempt to get to the truth is. Now, before we go to the break, I want to remind you of something I told you back on October 15th of receiving a phone call from an elite member of the drive-by media. She has a question for me. Will I urge my listeners to remain calm while the vote returns are being counted on election night? She is assuming that the results might not be available on election night or in the first few days, because the drive-bys have gotten themselves believing that the results are not going to be counted because of all the mail-in ballots and because of all of the absentees and so forth. They've got themselves convinced that Trump is going to, on election night, may end up winning in a landslide, but by the time they count all these other things, Trump's going to lose. So she wants to talk to me about whether or not I'm going to urge you to be adults, whether I'm going to urge you to remain calm and to not raise hell, like I've done so many times. When is the last time I urged any mass behavior on the part of anybody in this audience? Answer, it doesn't happen. I don't do it. I mean, what an insulting question. It turned out it was Leslie Stahl, and she wanted, this was for her interview with the president, as a pre-interview before the election, had one with Biden, one with Trump. And she wanted me to answer the question, will I urge my listeners to stay calm on election, as though you all are going to be raising hell out there, and it's all going to be part of the effort to get Trump elected, but it's going to be dishonest and all this. Would I do the right thing and urge you to remain? Because this was an attempt to intimidate. And, of course, it failed because we don't take these people seriously. I got to go. Quick time out. Much more when we get back. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network, right after this. And I'm going to get to the phones here in just a second. I need to make one observation. I don't want anybody misunderstand me and think that I'm being critical of the anecdotal evidence. I'm not. Let me try to explain this. The lawyers, if there ever is a czar, for example, if my idea were ever adopted and there is a czar, I know that the lawyers working for the czar, if they're going to need individual examples of fraud, they're going to need the anecdotal stories. But that's not what you report. That's what they assemble. You have to add things up to have a trend. You need patterns, and the individual examples are how you do it. But I'm just saying you don't go out and make the case on the individual examples. Like, you don't make the case by saying, I heard somebody call Rush Limbaugh who said X number of ballots were dipped into cod liver oil, and that has some super secret watermark on it. That's not how we do this. You tell the czar that, let the czar run it through the sifter, see if it passes the smell test. They do all that. I know lawyers are not going to be handed a smoking gun of 100,000 phony ballots. That isn't how it happens. And this is also key in a state like Pennsylvania. They've institutionalized the fraud and then legalized it. Like no signatures required on mail-in ballots. They did that in anticipation of this. No postal dates on mail-in ballots. They did that on purpose. The decision to take these safeguards off is part of the issue. Got to find out who did that, and did they have the legal authority to do it? Which makes the uncovering of fraud harder and harder. This is not going to be easy. We know it happened. But now the fraud's been institutionalized. Who decided no signatures required? Who decided no postal dates on mail-in ballots? So you got a bunch of people say, well, you need tons of fraud to prove it before you can move the needle. It's more complicated than that. It is a massive job, folks, to do this. That's why You need committed people. It is a massive thing to unwind what the Democrats have done here. It has to happen, though. This has wrecked the institutions that we all depend on for integrity and honesty throughout our government, throughout the electoral system. Okay, here's Steve in Las Vegas as we get to the phones. I'm glad you called, sir. Great to have you. Hi.
Rush, God bless you for good health. I'm rooting for you big time.
Thank you, sir.
First of all. Secondly, so we have a major coincidence that a week after an election, all of a sudden Pfizer has discovered a vaccine that's 90% effective. They had absolutely no idea about this before the election.
Yeah, they did. There's nothing suspicious about this.
Really? You don't believe?
No, Trump has been... No. Trump has been promising this. Trump has been suggesting that we're on the verge of a vaccine. He was hoping to have it announced beforehand, but he knew that wasn't going to be the case, and he told us. He knew they were close. He's been talking Pfizer. He's been talking Johnson & Johnson. I can understand your suspicion. Okay, now the election is decided, and here comes the announcement, the official. They couldn't make the announcement before. That's what you're upset about. But the fact that this has been done, there's nothing suspicious about the achievement. What you're curious about here is the timing, and you're correct about that. Anyway, I'm glad you called. Do not misunderstand me. We'll be back after this with much more. Reminder, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last day of more than likely, this is it for me this week. It's treatment week. We'll have Mark Stein and a whole coterie of guest hosts in the remainder of the busy broadcast week. We got 2 hours yet to go here, so batten down the hatches and buckle in. We'll make the most of them. Return before you know it. Don't go away. Yeah, Trump has just fired the Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper. Effective immediately. I haven't gotten a reason yet. We'll get a reason. Of course, there doesn't have to be a reason. Trump can fire whoever he wants anytime he wants. Well, he can't fire me because I'm not part of the regime. But if he can fire anybody in the regime, he could fire Comey. When he fired Comey, he could have fired any number of people. But he's now fired the Secretary of Defense. Welcome back, Rush Limbaugh and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. And a reminder, this for me is treatment week. Actually, folks, last week was supposed to be treatment week. And I moved it by 7 days with, of course, the acknowledgement of approval of the medical team to this week so as to be here during the election and its aftermath. I'm glad that happened. The odds are, I always try to make it back at least one day during treatment week. And I've been fortunate the past couple of treatment weeks, and I've actually made it back on Thursday and in one case Friday. Don't know about this week. I have planned, we got guest hosts lined up for every day, starting with Mark Stein tomorrow. And he's even on standby for today in case we had to skedaddle out of here early because of the weather. We've had this tropical storm go scooting by, and it was something that had to be watched because I got to get where I'm going. And if it meant I had to leave yesterday, then that would have put Stein in here today. It's worked out great so that we have a normal day today and a normal treatment week. So we have 2 hours here and make the most of it. The circumstance with where we are, I've got a couple of calls up here. In fact, I want to give me line 3. I'm going to take this blindly. Is he still there or not there? He's there. On paper, it looks good. Sherman, I don't know how he's going to sound, but it looks good. It's something I want to bounce off anyway. It was a point that I was going to make anyway. So let's grab Sherman, use him as the transition. Sherman is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Sherman, thanks for calling. How you doing, buddy?
Yes, sir. Doing great.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you're with us today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come in when you could have gone for treatment week. I really think you need to hear this, and I think the president needs to hear this. Everybody is taking the wrong message from this election, and they're missing the message, and they're angry and demoralized, but they need to stop being angry about it. I'm 48, and I actually feel better about the future of the country than I have in a very long time. This was not a blue wave or a wipeout or a repudiation of the president. The Republicans kept the Senate. Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Susan Collins won re-election.
Hang on just a sec. Now, I don't want to throw cold water on anything, and I agree pretty much what you're saying. It was not a blue wave. The country's not gone socialist. The country did not embrace Joe Biden. That's not at all what happened here. That's your point, right?
Yes, sir.
But we still had an election stolen. We still had. Now, I agree with your point, too, that anger, you're going to have some of that, but it should not be the guiding emotion. But on the Senate races, they're still trying to steal those, Sherman. In Georgia, one of the reasons why they have been holding off on giving that state to Trump and why they've been looking more votes is to force runoffs in both of those Georgia Senate races, which they've now done. If they take those two, they run the Senate because that gives them Kamala Harris as the 51st vote as vice president. And that means the blue wave does become the guiding principles of this country.
Yes, sir, but I don't think that's going to happen. And more importantly, I think the fact is that the president saved the party, and he grew the party, and he showed us the way by rebuilding it into a party of the working people. And now we need to carry on his work, whether or not he survives this ambush that happened to him in Philadelphia and Detroit and Milwaukee. But we have a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court, and we've got Sidney Powell and great people working on the legal fight, and hopefully they'll win. But even if they don't, the fact is that we have not lost the country, and I think, as a matter of fact, the complete opposite is the case. And I just want to make sure you know that and are confident about that.
I totally do. My point today has been to focus on how the investigation of the fraud is handled and how the information learned in the investigation is then disseminated, and what the purpose of the investigation is in the first place. I think it needs to happen because I think fraud cannot be allowed to stand. No matter what we say about it, you can say, well, look, it took them cheating to win. I feel really good about the country, folks. It took them cheating. Well, we can't leave it at that. And don't take this personally, Sherman. We can't leave it at they stole it. If they stole it, then that becomes institutionalized, and they'll keep stealing them. It has to be stopped. The effort has to be made to uncover what happened and then inform as many millions as possible. We cannot. You can talk about all the great things Trump did for the party, great things for the country, but if the left is permitted, by virtue of what happened here, to change institutionally the presidential election system so that they can steal it every 4 years, it doesn't matter. That cannot be allowed. We cannot permit that to stand. Whether the investigation shows Biden won or not, we want to know whoever won did so legitimately. There cannot be a circumstance where 70 million Americans don't trust it. And that's where we are. Now, you're calling and saying, we need to look on the bright side. We shouldn't be mad about it. Trump redid the party. Here's another thing, Sherman. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Republican Party, as made up of, say, the Never-Trumpers, they're going to go in there and they're going to try to take it back. They're going to try to reconstitute the party to what it was before Trump. You're saying, good luck. They ain't got a prayer. The American people, 95% of the Republican Party support Trump. That is the party. Yeah, you say that. But the battle is going to take place. All of these things that you've cited have happened. Trump reconstituted and redefined the party. He took it over and remade it in his own image. No question. Trump is not going anywhere no matter what happens in this election. He's going to do something. I also believe, I got a note from a friend of mine, said, Rush, Trump has earned our support despite his ups and downs. And my favorite movie, Rush, The Wild Bunch by Sam Peckinpah. You know, when they turn on one of their own, William Holden, the star of the movie, loses his temper, yells at these guys, when you side with a man, you stay with him. If you can't do that, you're like some animal. You're finished. We're finished. All of us. If you haven't seen The Wild Bunch, you really ought to watch it. It's a great movie. Sam Peckinpah was from Fresno, or is from Fresno. But it's all about loyalty in hard times. And my friend is pointing out here, you side with a guy, we've sided with Trump, we stay with him. If you can't do that, you're finished. We're finished. We all deserve to stand by Trump as he moves forward. When I stop and think of this on human terms, the Trump family, they're fine people to have been maligned and to have been disabused, to have been so mischaracterized and lied about, to have their character assassinated. This is the finest bunch of people you'd ever run into. They're a great family. None of Trump's kids have had problem one. They all work in the family business. They've all had to work their way up in the family business. They've been given nothing other than that opportunity, which is fine. That's what all families try to set up for their kids. They didn't have to do any of this, and they did. And it wasn't just Trump himself, his whole family, from his wife to his daughter to his sons to the in-laws. They were all in on this, and they were doing it for us. They were doing it for the country. They saw the country deteriorating. They didn't like it. They wanted America restored to its original promise of our founding. And for that, they end up under attack mercilessly for 4 years, every day, multiple times a day. And they didn't have to do it. And now they knew they were going to win this election. That's why they're shocked. That's why they're stunned. They knew. We knew. You do not draw 55,000 people to rallies while your opponent's sequestered in a basement. This just doesn't happen. But it did, because the Democrats were 6 months ahead of us in setting up these systems. And they run the electoral apparatus in these particular precincts where all this stuff happened. So it has to be investigated. It has to be discovered what happened. The American people need to know, for the future and the sake of the country, not for the Trumps. They would be beneficiaries of this if it is found that the fraud was wanton or rapid and all over the place. But this needs to be done for the sake of the Constitution. This needs to be done for the sake of the rule of law. It needs. If it isn't, we're on the downhill side, and the country's got a much harder task and job ahead of it in surviving as founded, and it must survive as founded. But the human side of this, what was done to the Trumps in order to bring this whole result about. Hey, I know, don't cry about it, Rush. It's politics. Don't get mad about it, Rush. I know. Don't get mad, Rush. There was no blue wave. I know there was no blue wave. But what if they can effectively create the illusion that there was by virtue of cheating and fraud? We know the president got more votes, but what if they succeed in taking them away? We didn't lose the state houses, the Senate? Not yet. They're trying to steal 2 Senate seats in Georgia with these runoffs. Chuck Schumer is not finished. You think they're just going to sit idly by and have Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House and not be able to do anything because they don't control the Senate? That's why this cannot be given up. This effort cannot be stopped. It's a two-pronged effort. Stop the ongoing fraud, stop the ongoing cheating, and then nail down that which has happened. And it's hard work, and it's going to take a while. But it must be properly motivated. And I'm not trying to sound like a Miss America pageant contestant here when I say the purpose of this is not so that Donald Trump gets a fair shake. This should be done so our Constitution survives, so that the institutions and traditions which have defined our nation's greatness survive. because those are the institutions under assault. Those are the things the Democrats are attacking in order to take power that they may not have and likely did not win at the ballot box. I've had so many emails from you about Fox News. I've had so many emails from those of you who are livid and angry, starting with the Arizona call, starting and then continuing with other things. And excuse me, I think that there's a simple explanation here. There's a key rule I've always believed in media, which is what I'm in. I'm in talk radio. And it actually goes back to the William Holden quote here in that movie, the Wild Bunch. You do not turn on your base. You do not turn on your audience unless you've had some kind of wait. What you just don't you don't do it for the sake of the approval of your enemies. You don't turn on the people who got you where you are because you would rather be friends with other people. You just don't do it, and that appears to be what's happened here. We've got Donna Brazile all over the place. We've got everybody on a talking head interview. Half of them or more are New York Times or Washington Post Democrat media people. The Arizona call. Some even with the Chris Wallace debate think is an anti-Trump move. But throughout all of this, the media can't turn talk radio, can they? The media has been desperate to blow up talk radio and Fox News. They've wanted to draw up Fox News ever since Fox News was founded and created. And they've wanted to blow talk radio up since before that. They've wanted to destroy me and my character and that of anybody else who hosts a talk radio program. Why is it, do you think? It looks like they may be having some success now in blowing up Fox. I mean, you've got the wife of one of the Murdoch brothers tweeting out, we did it, we got rid of Trump, we did it. I think it was Lachlan Murdoch's wife. So it looks like they may be succeeding in turning portions of Fox against its base. Let me tell you something, folks. If the people running Fox succeed in destroying the distinction that Fox has from the rest of the media, they're going to destroy Fox. If they are successful in taking away from Fox the things that distinguish it and make it appear different from the rest of the drive-by media, what do you think is going to happen? The reason they have not been able to do this with talk radio is we do not stab our audience in the back. We do not turn on our base. We remain principled and consistent. From me on down to everybody who does this on the conservative side, we are not apologetic. We do not seek the approval of people that don't like us. It's very strange how no one has figured out why it is talk radio that remains powerful, popular, unassailable. It's not difficult at all if you know where to look. Hey, I think I got my Murdoch brothers screwed reversed. It's James Murdoch's wife who tweeted, we did it, we got rid of Trump. I said it was Lachlan's wife, and I think it was James Murdoch's wife. The story is that Lachlan Murdoch is conservative. That's his story. All right, Marty in St. Augustine, Florida. I'm glad you called. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program. Great to have you here. Hi.
Hey, Rush. Thanks so much for taking my call. My husband brought me to Rush, so to speak, 30 years ago. and been listening ever since. And we just want you to know we're really thankful for you and that you've been able to continue to do your show, and we're praying for you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Me too.
Yeah, thanks. I just 2 quick points. I love the idea about the election czar. We happened to see Sidney Powell yesterday on Fox Business, Maria Bartiromo's show, and she laid out some really detailed information about where the investigation is going.
Right, I've got that data coming up. It's pretty comprehensive. It's pretty impressive what she's already found.
Yes, and one thing that we had not heard about that surprised us was about this software company. Apparently, some of the software used in tabulating the votes.
It's out there. This is all in the hopper. This is exactly the kind of stuff. I've seen it. I know it's out there. This is the kind of stuff that needs to be collected, investigated, looked at, and reported on. And we need to get to the bottom of it, and so that it doesn't remain just anecdotal. Hey, did you hear about this software code? We need to find out the truth about it. We need somebody to look into it and find out, is there something there?
Exactly. So I was impressed with Sidney Powell. I like her anyway, and I didn't know whether you would think she would be a possible candidate for the czar position if it goes that way. That was one point. The other thing, we also saw Mark Levin last night, and he mentioned that we have a Supreme Court for a reason. You know, as an average voter, you just feel frustrated because kind of gnashing your teeth, what can we do? But he mentioned that the Supreme Court's got to step up and enforce these election laws, and we're just praying that that's what's going to happen.
Somebody's got to take the case to them, and then they can. They have to want to hear the case, and that's what I think he's saying. They got to want to hear the case because the case will be taken to them. And now, you know, John Roberts could have shut it down before Amy Coney Barrett when the court was 4-4. Now it's not 4-4; it's 5-4. The odds are greater, I would think. We'll be back. A one and only EIB network, Rush Limbaugh. I am America's real anchorman, meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. Let's go back to the phones. This is Matt in Lincoln, Nebraska. Great to have you, sir. Hello.
Hey, Rush. Very long-time listener here. I just wanted to comment on the psych op that was ran by the media. One thing I noticed was the coordination before the election. Days before, every media organization was saying, hey, you're going to think on election night that Donald Trump has won. You're going to think this. But you've got to wait till the votes come in the next few days, and then you're going to see who the clear winner is. And what was interesting about that is they emphasized the fact this isn't fraud. This is just how this election is.
What do you mean it just isn't fraud? It's how it is.
That's what the media was saying. Don't think this is fraud. They kept saying days before the election, don't think that this is fraud. When the votes come in after Election Day and you thought that this is just how this election is this time. And that was kind of the psych ops of all the media was trying to condition everybody. You're going to think Donald Trump's going to win. But what you're really going to see is that Biden's going to win days later. You just have to have patience and don't let anybody tell you it's fraud because it really isn't.
Even though it was.
Even though it was.
Right. So your point is that they ran a psycho ops operation on everybody, telling them what was going to happen, and then it happened.
And then it happened, and they conditioned people to let them know this isn't fraud. This isn't fraud. This is just how this election is because of these times we're living in. Blame it on 2020.
The year 2020, right? Whatever. Well, that's they can do that. I don't care. You know, I couldn't care less what they say it was. I couldn't care less if they ran a psyops operation on us. All I care about is uprooting what happened. That's all I want to do. We've got to find out what happened because we all believe Donald Trump won this election. We all believe that he won it handily. We all believe common sense says that there is no way a candidate who did not even have a bond with his voters, a candidate who is a non-entity, a candidate who is an empty vessel, a candidate who is simply a faceless, nameless guy who's never won an election on his own other than the Senate, is going to get more votes than anybody else in history. We don't believe it. with a guy drawing 55,000 people at rallies, 37,000 people with a guy that's in a basement, maybe drawing 20 people in their cars to honk horns. And then there's the other evidence that we had, the common sense evidence. So, whether they ran their little operation here to tell us that no matter what it looks like on election night, Biden's going to win, we need to get to the bottom of it. For all of the reasons that I have stated today, I don't want to have to repeat everything, every phone call I get here. But this is about preserving the Constitution. It's about preserving the institutions and traditions that define the United States of America from every other country on earth. It's about making sure we do not descend to banana republic status. We are damn close. There was no reason on earth for early voting and mail-in voting to have not been counted by election night, for example. There's no earthly reason. We have to wait till Friday to count mail-in ballots. There's no... The mail-in ballot, anyway, that was the beginning of the end of all of this. They scare the hell out of everybody with COVID. They get everybody convinced you can't go to your polling place and vote without dying or running the risk of dying. So we come in with mail-in ballots, and then some of us end up criticizing mail-in ballots, and that ends up being a negative because a lot of people ended up liking the option of mail-in ballots, but they didn't have to show any ID. They didn't have to show a signature. The signatures didn't have to match. They didn't have to be in by Election Day. We're saying, what the hell? And in criticizing mail-in ballots, some people say, well, we like mail-in ballots, so screw you. So I was told every time you criticize mail-in ballots, you're just sending more people to use them. I said, oh, well, that's not good. This is not. But that's where all this happened. When you don't have to have any ID. No, I'm not criticizing absentee. Absentee, you've got to prove who you are. You don't with mail-in. What is this business about you don't have to count them by election night? When somebody said, as our last caller says, you're going to think you're winning on election night, but then after they count the mail-in ballots, that's where Trump's going to... Why do we wait until after election night to count the mail-in ballots when the mail-in ballots ostensibly are arriving before election day ballots? Oh, that's right, because they didn't have to arrive by Election Day. Why was that the case? Well, because not everybody can count on the Postal Service to do it right, and so we have to give some leeway. So we said as long as the ballots are in by Friday in one place or Saturday in another place, then we'll go ahead and count it. You think that isn't a recipe for the disaster that we're in the middle of here? Mail-in ballot. Why do you think mail-in ballots were not part of the original setup? It's just too great an opportunity for fraud. So this has to be run down, tracked down. It has to be discovered what happened. In a lot of states, a few states, they were able to count the mail-in ballots by election night. They did it in Florida. They did it in Texas. They did it in a whole bunch of well-run Republican states. Why can't they do this in Pennsylvania? Why couldn't they do it in Wisconsin? Why couldn't they do it in Michigan? Why were we waiting until Saturday? It was ridiculous for the mail-in ballots to be counted. We all know why. They were determining how many they needed. Democrat cities, they purposely were holding back counting the early voting and the mail-in votes in order to know how much they would need to find in order to win. There's no other explanation for this. But I can say that all day long, and it doesn't make it true. That's why we need a czar. That's why we need somebody to officially run down every aspect of this. Let me go through a couple of things. Joel Pollack, Breitbart, and a tweet. Democrats had to change voting rules. They had to censor the president, Twitter and Facebook. They had to kick people off social media. They had to modify search algorithms, i.e. Google. They had to terrorize cities, Portland, Seattle, looting and all that. They had to ban Trump rallies. They had to spend billions of dollars. They had to raise the dead and have them vote, and they still barely pulled this off. Donald Trump is a legend, and deservedly so. The thing that galls me, and it's going to always gall me, is that there are Republicans who are okay with this. There are Republicans okay with what the Democrats did to change voting rules, to censor the president, kick people off social media, to modify search algorithms on Google, to terrorize cities, spend billions of dollars, have the dead vote. The Republicans are okay with this. And the process, they have given election fraud their blessing. Well, yeah, the never-Trumpers, but not just them. Why do you think, seriously now, why do you think Trump was able to take over the Republican Party so quickly? Do you realize today's Republican voter has nothing much in common with the Republican Party that elected George W. Bush? It may be the same people in some overlap, but they're vastly different the way they look at things. And here, I saw somebody, it was Molly Hemingway, who tweeted, and I don't have it in front of me, but she raised an important, can you imagine if George W. Bush, okay, we can all accept that he doesn't like Trump, fine. But if, during this election cycle, if George W. Bush had just come out in favor of some of the Senate candidates, if George W. Bush had just voiced support for some Republicans running for office, can you imagine what difference it might have made? I don't know. Her point is that here's an ex-president, a former president, two-term Republican Party who's not saying a thing throughout these 4 years or this campaign. And she raised the question, can you imagine what kind of difference there might have been had George W. Bush weighed in, say, in the Georgia Senate races or some of the others? And the Bush family has been tremendous to me, as I have noted over the years. They have been great to me. They have given me access to information and things. I mean, they've just been really great people to me. George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush. It's tough to join the criticism trail. I'm not immune to it, but it is an interesting question. But I raise it, and I remind you of it simply to point out how little assistance Trump got from anybody in the Republican Party. And in fact, he was attacked by people in the Republican Party. And now let me find this thing on Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney has been asked to lead Health and Human Services in the Biden administration. This is the guy that gave us Obamacare. Remember, he wrote Obamacare as Massachusetts healthcare law. Mitt Romney has been asked to lead Health and Human Services in the Biden administration. I don't know if he's going to take it. Biden advisors expect that Romney will be tasked with making the national healthcare system more affordable without legislation that modifies the Affordable Care Act. Stories in the Buffalo Chronicle. I don't see in this story whether Romney has accepted the offer or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did. Hey, folks, holiday shopping this year likely to be that much more of an online experience. Wonder why? Nothing against visiting stores and seeing the merchandise, but convenience and product availability continue to drive change in the way we buy presents and gifts for people. And as you embark on your online shopping this season, do something smart for yourself, and that is protect your online identity. Get LifeLock protection. LifeLock's online identity theft protection is second to none. There is nobody even close. From the minute you sign up with LifeLock, their online monitoring systems go to work looking for evidence that your information has fallen into the wrong hands. You say, how can it happen that fast? It takes about a couple weeks. It takes a couple weeks for you to create an online, maybe even less, to create an online pattern that they can constantly measure against. And they're not chasing you down by name, and they're not watching individual purchase. They're watching patterns. And they see something outside the pattern, they ask you if you're the reason something outside the pattern's happened. That's how they do it, and it's brilliant. From the minute you sign up, they're tracking you to find out, to protect you, to see if people have invaded your online space. It can happen when a data breach occurs. Somebody plants malware on your phone or laptop, opens a new account in your name you're not aware of. Now, look, folks, no one company can prevent all identity theft, but LifeLock systems are brilliant at detecting unusual activity and reporting it to you quickly. Sign up today at lifelock.com, 800-440-4833 if you want to phone them. Either way, use my name, save 25% off the plan you choose. lifelock.com or 800-440-4833. Use my name as the offer code. Costa Mesa, California. Mike, you're next. Great to have you. Hi.
How you doing, Rush? God bless you in my prayers.
Thank you very much, sir.
I disagree with Sherman. I'm pissed off, Rush. I am pissed at the rule of law. The Constitution is just being totally ignored and stepped on. I am pissed off. Where is Bill Barr? Is he on vacation already? Thanksgiving vacation? Where's the Justice Department? Where's the FBI? I'm pissed. I'm pissed that we have a president who was firmly reelected in this country, and people are breaking the law to not have him elected. My son, Rush Baby, he's 42 now, called me Friday, and I told him, don't listen to the media all weekend, number one. And number two, if the Constitution and the rule of law are upheld the way it should be, then President Trump will be elected president. I'm pissed.
Well, the Constitution and rule of law must be upheld, and I think you're right. You're saying if the Constitution and rule of law are upheld, Trump will be elected. This stuff will all be shown to be BS. Is that what your point is?
Yes, sir.
And you're mad that we have to go through. You're mad the Democrats doing it. Mad the Democrats got away with it. And mad people aren't doing anything to stop them.
That's right. Where is Bill Barr, Rush? I haven't heard a word from him. Doesn't the Justice Department have something to do with the federal law, federal elections? Where is he? Where's he?
I hear you. I've been asking myself, where the hell's John Durham?
I don't care about Durham. He's investigating some from a year and a half ago. I want to know where Bill Barr is today in this election fraud. Where's the Justice Department? Trump, I'm sorry. If Trump is reelected, he's got to get rid of Bill Barr. Because when you need people that need to be behind you when you really need them, we as American people are behind Trump. I think he's going to be more of a powerful man, whether he's reelected or not, than ever. Because we are pissed out here.
Well, look, you bring up, whether he's reelected or not, and that does invite some speculation on my part. However this ends up, you all have to know Donald Trump isn't going anywhere. I don't know what he's going to do, but he's not going to go. He's just not going to slink away. He's not going to go back, run the Trump organization, and reconstitute the TV show The Apprentice, and go back to that. There's way too much out there that he would want to do, can do, and it would be oriented toward keeping America great, maintaining his agenda and doing what he can to protect it. I have no doubt that Trump is devoted to his agenda, however he must, to protect it. But I hear you, Mike. Look, I know everybody's mad. And frustrated and want fast action on this to deal with it. Quick timeout. We'll be right back, folks. Hang on. It's the fastest 3 hours in media. We have one more busy broadcast hour remaining. 800-282-2882 is the number if you want to be on the program and be in this last busy broadcast hour. Probably more than likely my last busy broadcast hour of the week, because this is treatment week, so know that. Be right back. Oh, no. Don't tell me. I just took a swig of the carbonated. Oh, no. This means Well, I'll try not to. What's the better word, belch or burp? I'll try not. I'll try not to burp at you folks here. Anyway, greetings and welcome back. Your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network. Great to have you with us. One big, exciting broadcast hour remaining. And again, just a reminder, this is treatment week for me. Moved it back a week so I could be here during the election. So we head off later today. And normally during treatment week, I try to get back at least one day. And I've been fairly fortunate to be able to do that. But it may not be the case this week, so I just want to let you know in advance. This may be one of those where I'll be out the whole week. Odds are, based on previous experience. If not, though, if I'm able to get in here and be cogent and know where I am, then I'll of course do so. But otherwise, we got it covered with Mark Stein. Who don't need to know the days. Who are they? Todd Herman and Stein and Ken Matthews. Those are them. Yeah, okay. Sidney Powell. You know, when I floated my idea earlier today that we need a czar running things, let me see if I can explain that again a little bit better. It's not that difficult a concept, but I'm thinking. Think Mueller investigation only legit. And think Mueller except somebody that knows what they're doing, not just a figurehead that's checked out and like Biden doesn't know where he is half the time. A legitimate constitutional scholar, legitimate constitutional lawyer, somebody who has been practicing, somebody from a highly reputable firm, somebody with impeccable credentials to lead this investigation of the 2020 presidential election. There are countless examples of questionable ballots, questionable people voting dead or alive. There's all kinds of information out there that needs to be chased down. So this person would not only head the effort and be the figurehead, but would be actively involved, not somebody who just gets a report every day and then reads the report somebody else wrote. This would be somebody actively involved, somebody cogent, somebody coherent, somebody who could lead the effort and then hires, and this would take money, I understand, and it's not mine that I'm offering up. This has got to come from the people doing the investigating. It'd be the Trump campaign or some other entity. But this person would then hire the team of investigators who would go out and make the case, do whatever they could to find the truth. And they would have to start, pardon the clearing of the throat, they'd have to start with all of the stories, all of the anecdotal stories and the anecdotal evidence. Let me define, I keep assuming everybody knows what this is. We always discount anecdotal evidence. I know you hear us discount, you hear me discount it. Anecdotal is, of course, the root word is anecdote, people telling a story. So you have somebody that nobody knows who saw something screwy going on with a ballot, say, in Pennsylvania, and they either tweet it or they call a talk show. Hey, I saw this. Okay, that's an anecdotal bit of evidence, which means it isn't evidence. It's somebody telling a story. And it could be true. It could be made up. You don't know if you don't know the person telling the story. And that's why, for me, as a talk show host, I don't like taking those calls because you can't confirm them. And I don't want to put misinformation on the air. And anybody can call here and say anything. It's impossible to track it down. And I don't want to do a talk show where boy, did you hear the guy that called and said, if it's not true, then it's harmful to me. It's not that it doesn't matter. It's harmful if it isn't true. I don't want to mislead anybody. So I'm not into in terms of what I do as the leading talk show host in the world. I'm not interested in anecdotal anything except for its value. And its value doesn't exist to me here. Now, there is value in this evidence as told to an elections czar, because that's all they're going to have to work with. They got to track it down. They've got the wheat from the chaff separated. And there's going to be a lot of lying. There's going to be a lot of people telling a lot of things that aren't true. There's already massive lies out there being made by people who are believed by certain people in our country. There's this big story that Trump ran a sting. Have you heard this one? Trump ran a brilliant sting operation waiting to unveil it, that every ballot in certain states has a secret watermark on it. Have you heard that one? Well, stupidity. You know how many people believed it? Well, this is why this stuff is dangerous. You get people calling a talk show telling stuff like this, and if the host is not informed and hadn't heard of this, the host go, wow, man, that is cool, and you're off and running with a bunch of BS. So the investigator, the czar, would have to wade through all of that and find out which of it is BS and which of it is legit. And believe me, there's going to be a lot of BS, because everybody wants to get noticed, and everybody wants to say they mattered, and everybody wants to say they had a role in it. Or there are going to be people on the left who are going to want to embarrass us. They're going to want us to accept and believe some really stupid stuff so that we look like a bunch of conspiracy theorists. This is why whoever does this has got to be brilliant, has to be patient, has to have an army or a team that can track this stuff down and not say anything about it to the American people until they have run it down. And everything has to be looked at in terms of constitutionality, because that's what's at stake here, folks, in all of this. Yeah, we want to save the election for DJ Trump. Yep. We want this to get done right. We want Trump to get what he earned, the presidency and the second term. But more importantly, the integrity of the process must be maintained in the eyes of as many millions of Americans as possible. The integrity of the electoral system must be established. If it isn't, nobody's going to believe it ever again. And you want to talk about turnout, you want to talk about the moment people start thinking that their vote really doesn't matter, then you're going to see people abandon elections like you've never seen it before. It's just too important here that the integrity, that the Constitution, that the rule of law, that all of this be affirmed. And for that to happen, this election must be investigated. Every lead must be tracked down. Every reported problem should be investigated, as long as it takes. There should not be a time limit. There should not be a hurry. I mean, a reasonable time. Yeah, but we shouldn't have to get this done by the end of next week, for example. There's no reason for that. The next president's not inaugurated till next January. The next Congress is not seated till next January. We're going to have runoff elections in January to 2 Senate seats in Georgia. There doesn't need to be a hurry. Al Gore got 37 days to try to overturn things in one state, 3 counties, basically, of one state. Now, I maintain that if there was no fraud, the Democrats would invite Republicans to examine every aspect of the process and be done with it. The Democrats say, we're not going to do that. They're going to come in here and plant evidence. No, we're not going to plant evidence. But I can see them saying that. But I still believe if there was no fraud, the Democrats would be a little bit more solicitous towards us looking at the process. I would think they would want us to look like fools. I would think they would want us to look like kooks. What better way to let us see their legitimate process? What better way? If there's massive fraud, if there is massive fraud, there will be a campaign to call the election now. That's what's happening now. Sidney Powell claims 450,000 ballots that voted only for Biden. The left were left blank. Attorney Sidney Powell claims that her team has found 450,000 ballots with only votes for Joe Biden and no down-ballot selections made. Sidney Powell suggests this number of single-vote ballots is suspect and indicative in part of abject fraud that she says flipped the election to Biden. Let me tell you, 450,000 ballots that only vote for Joe Biden, that's not suspicious. That is fraudulent. That doesn't. How can that be? I'll tell you how it can be. They only cared about the presidential race. They only filled out ballots with Biden's name because that's all that mattered. Sidney Powell, the attorney for Michael Flynn, she has been very vocal about the need to challenge the results of the general election, which she contends is rife with evidence of a massive and coordinated effort to steal the election by efforts to delegitimize and destroy votes for Trump and to manufacture votes for Biden. She says they have done it in every way imaginable. They've had dead people vote in massive numbers to absolutely fraudulently creating ballots that exist only voting for Biden. So we've identified 450,000 ballots in the key states that miraculously only have a mark for Joe Biden. She said this on the TV show of Maria Bartiromo. Sidney Powell pointed to Florida. Things were done right. They counted all the ballots on election night, including these precious mail-in ballots, the way the rest of the country should have. She maintains that malicious actors used an algorithm to calculate the votes they would need to flip, and that they used computers to flip those votes from Trump to Biden and from other candidates to their competitors. Also, it wasn't just President Trump. There were many people affected by this, she said. We've got to fight tooth and nail in federal court to expose this abject fraud and the conspiracy behind it and get a recount and audits in every place it is needed, which is, frankly, most of the country. Folks, that is a stunning number of ballots. 450,000 miraculously only have one name on them. Here's some other statistics from Miranda Devine at the New York Post. There are 5 swing states that are within 1%, and every damn one of them has Joe Biden in the lead. In Georgia, Biden was ahead last night by just 10,352 votes. For how long was he behind in Georgia until they found a way to move him past it? In Arizona, Biden was ahead by 19,438 votes. In Wisconsin, he was ahead by 20,540. Pennsylvania ahead by 43,251 after being up 800,000 or 750,000. In Nevada, Biden was up by 31,300 or 464 votes. It is not outlandish or unprecedented to accept the possibility that at least some of those margins may be erroneous, whether through human error or indeed fraud. Look, folks, it is entirely possible that all of this may not amount to much of anything at all. But it has to be investigated. It has to be examined. Because there are 71 million people who voted for Trump who are going to think the election was stolen, and I think they're right, but you can't have that many people, 71 million, thinking the presidential election system in America is so tainted that it can be stolen from somebody who got 71 million votes. You can say goodbye to people participating in the process, which the Democrats would absolutely love. Trump said himself over the weekend, this is no longer about any single election. This is about the integrity of our entire election process. And that is bingo. That is right on the money. Whatever comes of the allegations, nothing is more important than these two Georgia U.S. Senate runoffs. That's control of the Senate right there. And does anybody think the Democrats in Georgia are going to let these Senate seats go to the Republicans? I mean, if that's the attitude that we have, then what does it say about our perception of the system already? All right, back to the phones as people have been patiently waiting. Walton Hills, Ohio. This is Jim. Welcome, sir. It's great to have you here. Hi.
Well, thank you for your time, Rush. Say, I was wondering, I know you spoke of William Buckley in the past as helping you get your career started and get you on the path that you're on now. I'm just wondering what you think he would think of this presidency and this travesty of an election. You know, what do you think his thoughts would be on this? I'll hang up and listen, though.
Okay,
all
right. He's asking me what I think William F. Buckley would think of the Trump presidency. This is going to be a wild guess. It will be a guess informed by intelligence guided by experience, admittedly. And what he would think of the... well, I know what he thinks. Of this election mess, I'm pretty confident in believing that he would think that this is highly suspicious. He'd be worried about it. In Buckley's day, going back now to the 40s, 50s, the 50s on through the 70s, it was the unions that did all of this stuff that the Democrats are now doing at the State House. It was the unions where all of the chicanery happened. And I can remember being at his home, his Masonette on Park Avenue, 73rd Street, watching election returns. And I remember getting real frustrated because he was just pessimistic as hell. And I said, Bill, what are we even doing here? If you don't think, hey, it's the unions. It's the unions. We can't overcome the way the unions are going to cheat this. We just can't So he was well aware of the Democrats and their abilities. What he would think of Trump, look, folks, this is a wild guess. William F. Buckley was an anomaly. He was a member in good standing of the New York City elite, but he was conservative. He was respected and adored by the New York liberal elite, and he never once had to compromise his beliefs to do it. He didn't have to give them a thing. He didn't have to change one thing that he believed. What he would think of Trump as president, I think would probably surprise you. I think he would have loved it. Remember, William F. Buckley was the guy who said he would rather be governed by the first 1,200 names in the Boston phone book than by the faculty at Harvard. Meaning he would much rather be governed by a bunch of average, ordinary people and a bunch of elite academics, of which he was one. Academic, he was an elite, unique mind. He was brilliant. He was hilarious. He was sardonic. He was sarcastic. He was a conservative. And he would have had a twinkle in his eye about Trump and that Trump had won and had beaten those people. He would not have had this phony attitude that Trump's attitudes embarrassed him. He might have, I don't know, tweeting didn't exist before Mr. Buckley passed away, but can only guess about that. Hi, welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, executing assigned host duties flawlessly, zero mistakes. I want to share with you a quote from somebody. Ready? Our safety, our liberty, depends upon preserving the Constitution of the United States as our fathers made it inviolate. For those of you in Rio Linda, it means we can't violate it. It means we cannot abandon it. It has nothing to do with it being purple. We cannot abandon it. The people of the United States are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution. Who said that? Abraham Lincoln. And all he did was preserve the Union by believing the Constitution was inviolate. Our safety, our liberty, depends upon preserving the Constitution of the United States as our fathers, founding fathers, made it inviolate. The people of the United States are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution. That's what this effort should be focused on. Overthrowing the men who pervert the Constitution. Overthrowing the people, in other words, who are ignoring it, who are trampling on it, who are running the risk of ruining it. Now, it's going to take time, folks. Tracking down all of these reports, the anecdotal evidence, if you will, tracking it all down, and then getting sworn declarations. You can't just say, hey, I got this guy over here who said this guy's got to swear to it. All of these people with their anecdotal stories and evidence that they tweet or they email or what, you've got to get to them, and they have to swear that it's true. They have to sign declarations and affidavits. They have to subject themselves to perjury charges. That takes time. It requires interviews. It requires trying to find out who these people are and why they may be saying this. None of this is going to be easy. And the czar, but I have this imagination of sitting in position here overseeing all this, is exactly what the job is, overseeing all of this, overseeing all these actions, directing these actions, informing the people that work for the czar doing the investigations what needs to be done. Here the stuff needs to be tracked down. These are the people you need to find. These are the people who need to swear to what they're saying happened. And this is a lot of states. Now, this is already happening. There's not a czar per se, but this is already happening. And it takes time. I know you read about these examples on Twitter or Sidney Powell, 450,000 ballots with only Biden's name on them. And you say, well, Sidney Powell would never lie about it. Yeah, still has to be tracked down. Still has to be sworn to. Still has to be signed off on. Nobody's word is good, in other words. You've got to go through the process here. Here's another story that ran in, I think it's the American Thinker. Wait just a minute, it says here. Some very good news may be coming. Let me give you some pull quotes from this piece. Hey, guys, this thing is not only not over, it's scary for Biden. I mean, really scary. And most of all, the media know it. Thus, the rush to get everybody in line with the narrative that a 78-year-old early dementia former VP who couldn't even draw a crowd larger than a dozen just beat Donald Trump in a fair election? Process that for a moment. It's not possible. Start with Pennsylvania. Biden, as of this writing, is at 290 electoral votes. Pennsylvania is 20 of them. I read the Justice Alito opinion. It's pretty clear he wants the after-election night at 8 p.m. votes separated for a reason. Well, Biden's going to lose at the Supreme Court if it goes there, and they know it. This guy is, he's confident that the Supreme Court would throw out those ballots that came in after 8 p.m. on election night. I'm not. but the writer here is. Okay, fine. We'll go with the writer for the sake of the interesting aspect. So Biden's going to lose at the Supreme Court, and they know it. 4 justices already said that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court cannot adjust voting rules. And they can't, folks. The state legislature is the only body empowered to change voting rules. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court can't do it. All they can do is weigh in on efforts that have been made, but they cannot do it themselves. Now we got a new justice, Justice Barrett. And she says that she's there to apply the rules in the Constitution. Okay. Well, what a bet that she does. If she does, and if the Supreme Court takes a case and if it goes there, and if you remove the after 8 p.m. ballots, then Biden loses those 20. This guy says Biden loses Pennsylvania if you take away the ballots that Alito wants set aside. That anything after 8 o'clock on election night is illegal. Pennsylvania Supreme Court said, no, it's not. We're going to allow them. The point is they can't make that rules change. Another pull quote. Excuse me. We have bloggers with lots of time on their hands. They're going through voter rolls and they're showing that person after person who voted in a swing state also fought in the Civil War. Maybe fought in the War of 1812. It was funny at first, all these dead people voting, but then the overwhelming number of dead voters goes beyond humor. Now they're rubbing our faces in it. He says, I think Donald J. Trump has to swing one state. Not only is this thing not over, the Biden team must be sweating bullets. This is all his opinion. Voter fraud at a scale seemed like a really cool idea until Trump went to the mattresses. Now that he's fighting it out, one voter at a time, with the Supreme Court likely to create the starting point at Biden 270, Biden has everything to lose. No more truckloads of votes coming in. So every ballot Trump's team eliminates gets President-elect Biden one step closer to former VP Biden, who lives in a basement. Okay, so this is just a sample of some of the stuff that's out there. People are reading it. They're getting revved up and excited, and I don't blame you. But the real process is going to take some time. Eliminating Biden ballots is going to take time. It's not going to happen just because somebody says they saw something. And I'm not trying to be critical or mocking of anybody. Don't misunderstand. Here's another one. Top attorney Lynn Wood. This guy's a First Amendment lawyer, free speech. This guy defended the Covington kids and got them huge settlement deals from CNN and other news organizations. And he is livid over what he's seen. First Amendment lawyer says they took a victory from Donald Trump and they called it a lie. This country is under attack. That's attorney Lynn, L-I-N, Lynn Wood, on why he's joined Trump's legal team. He spoke at a rally in Georgia on Saturday about why he joined the Trump team. He's fighting the Democrats, big media, big tech, as they attempt to steal the election for Biden. Here's how he began his speech. I was sitting around Tuesday night watching the election returns. I've loved politics all my life since I first voted in 1972. And I saw what I assumed was going to happen. I saw President Trump building up what I believe was going to be an almost historic landslide victory. And then all of a sudden, every network, including Fox, starts doing what they do best. They started lying to the American public, and they took a victory from Donald Trump, and they called it a lie. They took a defeat from Joe Biden and lied and said that he won. And they sent you to bed, turning off the count of the vote so you could wake up the next morning like I did and go, what the hell happened? What happened? When I was asked by President Trump to help him in Georgia, perhaps other places around the country, I said yes, because there is a cloud over this country. And if we don't get it right, and if we don't figure out what happened that night, that cloud is going to get darker and darker until it turns into a storm cloud, and we're going to lose our freedom, folks. If we cannot have fair and open elections with integrity, where people trust the outcome, we have lost our freedom. So it's time to fight back. This is a constitutional crisis. If we don't fix it, if we don't find out what happened that night and get it right, we're going to lose our constitutional rights. 43 years of practicing law, I never dreamed the day would come where I would be in the United States of America and there would be censorship. If they take away your right to free speech, what are they going to take away next? And your right to free speech is voting for who you want to vote for. If they can change your vote, if they can cancel your vote out, you do not have free speech or free anything else. So Lynn Wood says, let's find out what happened. It's about truth versus lies. If you don't think this was planned, if you don't think this is all part of some big giant plan, you go ahead and enjoy losing your freedom under the Kamala Harris administration. And she's not going to be running the country. There are people who are going to be running the country who are rich. They're globalists. Some even don't live here. A lot of them are involved with foreign countries. She's a placeholder. Biden's a placeholder. It is time to tell the truth and be truthful and face the truth. Our country's under attack. This was nothing more than a revolution. They're trying to take away your rights. They're trying to take away your Constitution. They're trying to take away, ultimately, your freedom. Don't let them do it. Donald Trump is for the people, and that's why the people voted for him. Trump is troubled because he sees what's being done to the people. It's like Republicans should stand up for the president. I've watched him for 4 years. He's been out there fighting for the people. He's almost always fighting for himself. It's time for us to fight for him. That's Lynn Wood, well-known First Amendment lawyer, on Saturday in Georgia, explaining why he signed on to the Trump team. This question always comes up in conversation at holiday time. What do you get for so-and-so? Who are you going to get what? Sometimes you just draw a blank. Well, the answer might well be from Boll & Branch this year. This company known for making the most comfortable, luxurious sheets that you will ever own. Don't doubt me. There are so many people in this audience who love them and live by them, swear by them every night. Boll & Branch products made with a pure organic cotton. They make all of their products soft. And it's unique to this brand, this material, each of their products. So the sheets, they start out soft and comfortable, and they only get softer and more comfortable over time. Same true with their towels, the throw blankets, everything they make. So as you contemplate gift giving, think about Boll & Branch. Once you discover the luxury of this brand, you're going to want to share it with others. For some, it's become the favorite gift item to share with close friends and family. Every set of sheets that you purchase comes with a 30-night full money-back guarantee. That's how confident they are in your satisfaction. Online, bollandbranch.com, BOLLN branch.com. Use my name. Get the special holiday discount right now. One of the few times of the year you can get such a deal. bollandbranch.com. Make sure to use my name for the promo code, that special discount. The phone lines are dropping. It's strange how that happens. Well, we had a guy up there who I told him to have him hang on, and the phone lines are dropping. He wanted to, there was some guy that called last week who said that I was not mad enough over what was happening. Like I was really, really mad over the coup and when they tried to steal the election from Trump. But this guy says, you don't sound nearly mad enough at the fact that they're trying to steal the election. And I wanted to talk to him because I didn't know what that meant. And he didn't hang on, so I don't think I got to him. Did I talk to him? Well, he said the guy that wanted to talk to today was talking about it was an insult to me to say that. But I've forgotten what the guy said to me, that I wasn't mad enough about it, or maybe that I was resigned to it or what have you. But folks, in my old age here, I've started asking myself, what is getting mad at something accomplished? I mean, it can provide you maybe with some motivation, but the anger itself doesn't solve anything. Sitting here yelling and screaming, what's that going to do? It may rile you up, and it may be what you want to hear, and it may be a tonic, but it's not going to solve anything. But I don't even think it was a factor because I was livid. I still am over this. I'm livid on so many levels, and I'm scared what these people are doing to our Constitution, folks. I am scared what they're doing to the rule of law. And they've been doing it for years. I've been warning people about liberalism my entire career. And there's parts of me that feel like an abject failure. That not enough people have heard me. We still have to deal with it. Anyway, I got to go. I hope to be back for the end of the week, but it's doubtful. I just got to tell you truthfully now. But I will get back here as soon as I can. Thank you, folks. Oh, as usual, my friends, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it more than you know. I will be back.